Belgorod was the first hammer on Russia's endurance wall. Crocus City Hall has broken it. And now the start to the finish has started. We will tell you all about it, but before that, if you're a fan of non corporate funded free news and analysis, you've landed on the right YouTube channel. Okay, let's begin. The recent escalation of Russian military operations across Ukraine marks a significant intensification of the conflict. Notably, critical infrastructure, including energy facilities, has been targeted, resuming tactics not observed since early 2023. This uptick in aggression culminated on March 25th with the destruction of the Ukrainian intelligence headquarters in Kiev by Russian missiles. This act signals the commencement of the final phase in the conflict. The increase in Russian military actions is reportedly in retaliation to what is described as Ukrainian radicalism, particularly attacks near the Russian border, especially in the Belgorod region, which have resulted in casualties and damage to civilian structures. The Russian Federation views the safeguarding of its territory as a paramount concern, categorizing Ukrainian border incursions as severe breaches of its sovereignty. Russia's approach to the conflict with Ukraine has been characterized by a deliberate effort to minimize harm to civilian infrastructure, reflecting Moscow's intention to moderate the conflict's impact on the general populace. Despite recognizing critical infrastructure as potential military targets, the Russian government has historically sought to avoid operations that would significantly disrupt civilian life, particularly those affecting energy supplies. However, persistent attacks on Russian border regions such as Belgorod and Kursk by Ukrainian forces have forced Putin's hands. While comprehensive details remain scarce, available images and fragmented reports suggest massive strikes on the headquarters of Ukraine's primary intelligence agencies, the SBU and GUR, thereby paralyzing Ukraine's operational and decision-making capabilities. Russia reportedly employed hypersonic missiles in its attacks. These advanced weapons, combined with the strategic targeting of Ukrainian intelligence facilities, suggest a direct response to events that have unfolded on Russian soil. The attacks on these key Ukrainian sites have resulted in substantial casualties among high-ranking military personnel, dealing a critical blow to Kiev's military capabilities. It is anticipated that detailed assessments of the damage and the resultant Ukrainian losses will soon become public, providing a clearer picture of the conflict's shifting dynamics. What's interesting to note is that the timing of these strikes closely follows the attack on Crocus City Hall in Moscow's suburbs, which claimed over 130 Russian civilian lives, and it's certain that these attacks are of retaliatory nature and a little more. The investigation into this tragedy has pointed to Wahhabi militants acting as mercenaries rather than pursuing typical radical objectives. The aftermath of the Crocus City Hall incident, where perpetrators sought refuge in Ukraine following their heinous acts, presents a compelling argument for their connections and directives from Ukrainian intelligence. Russian authorities, while confirming the identity of the assailants, admit the orchestrators behind the scenes remain unidentified, highlighting a gap in understanding the full scope of the operation and its financiers. The sequential targeting of Ukrainian intelligence infrastructure by Moscow, notably after the Crocus incident, seems to reflect more than just a retaliatory gesture. It potentially signals Russia's conviction, or at least very strong suspicion, of Kiev's involvement. By dismantling Ukrainian command and decision-making apparatus, Russia aims to cripple the strategic capabilities necessary for orchestrating further assaults, indicating a preemptive rather than purely retaliatory strategy. But it is certain that these actions mark a pivotal transition in the ongoing Ukrainian conflict, showcasing a shift in Russian tolerance levels. Despite initially adopting a restrained approach to avoid exacerbation, the persistent targeting of civilians by adversaries is perceived as a direct challenge to Russian thresholds. This has evidently led to a recalibration of Moscow's response strategy, manifesting in more frequent and decisive strikes against key Ukrainian facilities. The evolution of these strategies underscores a critical juncture in the conflict where Russian restraint is giving way to a more assertive posture in face of perceived provocations, setting the stage for an increasingly volatile confrontation. This is possibly the start to the finish. And before you go, here is the video about Zelensky's shameful war on people, the heinous actions in Belgorod, and Russia's response to it. Do watch.